I feel like today unattached from my family of origin, yet not quite attached to my biological family. So I'm kind of in this void between these two families. I don't like that feeling. It feels unsettled to me.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I am your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for Not Parent Expected or Non-Paternal Event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. And welcome to episode 34, where today I am talking to Allison. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Lily.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to record this podcast.
And Allison, you have listened to every podcast episode, is that correct?
I have, and they've been very helpful. Thank you so much for providing this forum for us.
Absolutely. And today it's your turn to share your NPE story. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your childhood and your family of origin?
So I grew up, I was born in 1967, and I grew up in sort of what would have been considered probably a typical middle-class family of the time. I grew up in California, and I had two parents and a younger brother. Never thought that there was anything necessarily odd or unusual about my family or my upbringing. My mother had some character pathology or mental wellness issues that impacted sort of our life, and I'm very grateful for the my father who raised me, because I think my brother and my lives would have been a lot different had it not been for him. He really ran interference. This is something I didn't appreciate as a kid because I didn't really understand it or know it. But as an adult, I can see the kind of interference that he ran to sort of protect my brother and me from our mother and her essentially abusive behavior. I grew up in a household that seemed normal on the outside. My brother and I went to school, had friends, did activities, we did, all of those kinds of things. And generally speaking, I would say we were happy kids and we did well, good students. But there was a lot of darkness and secrets and violence in my household that a lot of my friends who knew me then, that I'm still friends with now, had no idea, because everything was a secret. We had to keep everything a secret. We couldn't, disparage the family or have anything come out. And my brother and I were put in a position to lie for our mother, basically. She was not very family oriented. She resented the fact that my dad had a lot of family that we would go visit and see. And most of the time she would not come. And she made it very horrible for us. It made us feel bad if we interacted with family, and we always had to cover for her, or our mother's sick, or our mother's this, our mother's that. And everybody knew that wasn't true. But we, did that anyway. And I learned fairly early on. I can't really speak for my brother because we're different type of personalities, so I can really only speak for myself. But I learned pretty early on that I had to not really be myself in the household that I grew up with, because my mom didn't tolerate that. If we weren't the same as her, or if we didn't have the same opinion, or if we didn't fall in line, quote unquote, she would just so critical. And I never really knew. She was always moving the goalposts. You never really knew what we were supposed to be doing or how or when. So I found a lot of comfort and support outside of my home with having a lot of friends and doing a lot of activities. And I was myself, in those environments, but I really didn't feel comfortable. Sadly, now I look back, as an adult thinking, well, that's kind of sad for me as a child, but I didn't really feel I could be myself as a kid. And that's, mostly because of my mother. My dad wasn't that type of person, and I felt more comfortable with him. But because my mom sort of controlled the household, you just sort of adjust to the environment that you're in. And I don't want it to sound all negative, because there's certainly people that had far worse childhoods than my brother and I had, and there was a lot of good things about it. But if since this is a podcast about being honest, I figured it does help, I think, explain sort of my mother, who is not, after listening to a lot of the other stories and reading a lot of the posts on I'm on the NPE Facebook page as well. There's a lot of common themes about our mothers, right? Um, and so I think my mother is not unusual, but I think it does help sort of describe the way that she is now with regard to sort of my NPE status. So, in a nutshell, I never, despite all of that, all of the sort of drama that was in my household as a kid, I never really felt that I didn't belong to the family biologically, right? There were some things that I thought were weird. Like I never felt like I fit in, but I never felt that I wasn't biologically related. The four of us kind of looked enough alike. My brother and I look like our mother. My brother and I don't really look like each other, but we look like our mother, and my brother looks like my dad. So we tied in enough together. One thing that is kind of that it makes sense now, but at the time I didn't understand it, is on my dad's side, the paternal side, all of the brown-eyed people have a certain sort of brown eye. Very beautiful, very soft, dark brown eyes. And I do not have eyes like that. My brother does, my dad does, my niece does, all of my brother's brown-eyed siblings do, his father, they all have these, what we call the family eyes. And I never had those. And I was always jealous of that because they're very beautiful. And my eyes are also not like my mother's. So that was just, didn't really cause me any concern about, being related or not related to my family. But that was, just a little fact of the matter. I also have a unique quality, unique to my family, not unique in the world, that I have dimples and nobody else in my family of origin does. Not my parents or my brother, none of my cousins, none of my aunts and uncles or anything like that. So that was something that I was proud of. I said, well, at least I have dimples. I don't have the eyes, but I have the dimples. So I always, thought that was kind of cool to have that. As it turns out, I fast forward, my biological family that I've now found since my NPE status, I have 3 biological sisters. They all have dimples, so that's pretty cool, actually.
Oh, that is.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know what else to say about my family of origin other than sort of, this is kind of maybe of interest to people. So my parents got married when my mom was already pregnant with me. So I was a late term baby. I was born about 10 days later. So I was born at the beginning of September. I was due in August, and my parents got married in March of that year. And my dad is the man who raised me, is actually a gay man. He, of course, did not admit that he was gay at that time, because in 1966 and 1967, and even today, actually, it really wasn't very safe to admit that. It wasn't the kind of lifestyle that people admitted to, because he could have been killed. So what he has mentioned, and he didn't. My parents were married for 25 years. They got a divorce. They've been divorced for about 25 years now, and wasn't until my dad was in his 50s that he came out of the closet, if you will, and started living a gay lifestyle. He's much happier now. I'm very happy for him. I'm glad that he has done that. But that was sort of another sort of secret in our household that it was kind of known but not known. There's just a lot of different things that sort of my household was sort of based on. He admits in his way, my dad isn't a very straightforward kind of person, the dad who raised me. And what seems clear to me now is that he was desperate to fit into society at that time, and he wanted desperately to be quote unquote normal and find a wife and have children. So my parents got engaged in 1966 summer, but my dad for various reasons, had broken it off with my mother at about the end of October of 66 or the beginning of November, because my mom came from a very traumatic family. Her father was a POW in World War II, held prisoner for 3.5 years, had a lot of problems. We didn't identify things like PSTD and those kinds of things in those days. So he had a lot of unresolved issues. He was very violent. He would beat people up, not my mother, but her brother and mom, a lot of violence. And ultimately, after my birth, he actually committed suicide and had murdered my grandmother. So my mother came from a lot of trauma, definitely. So I try to keep that in perspective when trying to do an analysis on my mother. I try not to, judge her too harshly, because I do acknowledge that she comes from this place. So my dad really couldn't deal with the violence in my mom's house, and so he had broken it off. And so he found out through sort of a mutual friend at the end of December of that year, 1966, that my mom was pregnant. So for some reason, he assumed that I was his. Even though when you kind of look at it, the dates don't really line up, but okay, he made the assumption, and he basically strongly encouraged my mother to marry him. And what's unclear at this point is whether or not my mother told my dad that I was his, right? I think that he assumed, and it's not clear if my mom actually said that or not, but nevertheless, they got married, and that's how it was. So I think that is somewhat of sort of, now that we're kind of trying to piece pieces together, some of this stuff is sort of interesting to make some sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and thank you for painting that picture of your early childhood, and also a little bit about your parents' background.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now how did you find out you were an NPE?
So fast forward to 2018. So as I mentioned, my mother has a lot of problems, and one thing that has been challenging is having a normal healthy relationship with my mother as an adult person. I've tried, and unfortunately, we've had a very hit and miss relationship over the years. And I've had periods of time where, I just had to distance myself from my mother for my own sanity. And it hasn't been really healthy, actually, to be honest. It took me a lot of years to I put boundaries up, and my mom would promptly, crush them down, and I would let her sort of draw me back in. And we sort of had this sort of relationship like that. So after I turned 50, my daughter got pregnant shortly thereafter. So this is kind of the beginning of 2018. My mother started in with the same sort of stuff that she does. She's an extremely jealous person. She's jealous of her own children, even, and everybody that she comes in contact with, and, just has nothing nice to say about anybody. And in fact, even if this were a rated R podcast, I could not even bring myself to even utter the things that my mom says. It's so incredibly horrible, the stuff that she says, and it's so embarrassing that I won't even, go there. But just, my mom is very, very abusive verbally, for sure. So she started in like she does, and she was starting to exhibit jealousy towards my unborn grandchild, and just behaving in ways where I had my niece with me. My niece and I would do some road trips, and we would visit my mom sometimes my dad. And we had to leave. I told my niece, I said, pack up your stuff. We're going to go home now, because I'm not going to, have my niece exposed to this stuff. And so, we packed up and left. And a few days later, my mom calls, and she, wants to know why we left. And I said, well, gee, I don't know. Maybe you can think about sort of your behavior at the time. And, she just launches in and doesn't get it, and makes it, that it's everybody else's problem. So I made a decision at that point, at the beginning of 2018, that I just couldn't have this in my life. If my mom can't be somewhat functional in a healthy way, I just can't have my grandson exposed to that. I was not going to have him exposed to that. So I had started distancing myself at that point. This was before I took the DNA test. I had plenty of reason to, have a limited relationship with my mother. before I even found this out. So it's close to Thanksgiving time now, 2018, and I'm talking to my dad. And he's telling me about how he took DNA testing through MyHeritage and Ancestry.com, and that he was building this big family tree. And he was telling me all about it. And I said, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool." I was kind of skeptical. I'm a science person, but I'm thinking, how accurate are these home tests and all this kind of stuff? And he thought they were accurate, and he liked all the information that he was finding out. So I thought, well, maybe I'll take one that's on sale, and maybe I'll take one just to find out about my mother's side, because my mom is not interested in family, as I mentioned, but she does have kind of an interesting family history, because her mother and her grandmother are from the Philippines. So I thought, well, that would be really cool to sort of get that. Hopefully, there's somebody that would have taken the test that sort of fills in that side. So I took the test close to Thanksgiving, and then on Christmas Eve of 2018, I get my results. And I just had no clue whatsoever that I was going to get anything weird. I thought I would just get some new information about my mother, but I didn't think I was going to get anything weird or unexpected. So I opened up my results, and I don't know anything about Ancestry or really how to read them, so I'm looking at it, and first thing I kind of see is that I have a lot of Irish. I'm over 75% Irish. I'm thinking, oh, that's weird. That's like way more than I expected. Okay, whatever. And I'm looking at it, and I don't see my dad as a match right away, and I don't see his brother, who's my uncle, as a match right away. But, I don't know how to use the thing, so I'm kind of like, okay, not too concerned. And then I see someone who's listed as a close relative. Name I don't recognize. I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I'm like, oh, this must be messed up. See, these home tests are no good. Just like a lot of NPEs, I'm thinking, of course, it's a mistake. They got my test mixed up with somebody else. So, I'm looking at it, and then I see that my first cousin, who I know is the first cousin on my mother's side, my mom's brother's daughter, is matched. I'm like, okay, so it must not be a mistake. How weird. This is really bizarre. Well, I'll call Ancestry and, find out about it. Of course, it's Christmas Eve, so I can't call until the day after Christmas. In the meantime, I text my cousin, and I asked her, hey, you took Ancestry. I see that we're matched, obviously. Do you have such and such person on your list? She looks, she says, no, never heard of him. And I asked my dad, I say, do we know anybody by this last name? No, name doesn't ring a bell, right? And he has his results too. My dad is classic for one of his personality traits is that he just ignores stuff that he doesn't want to know, and therefore it's not real. And let's not talk about the elephant in the room. So he doesn't mention anything about us not being matched. Like, it doesn't come up at all. And I don't say anything right away, but I'm kind of seeing, has he noticed that we're not matched? I'm kind of wondering. And I'm kind of joking around with my family, like, oh, we call my dad Poppy. Might not be related to Poppy, haha, because I'm thinking it's a mistake. So we're sort of joking around, because what else are you going to do with this information? So I finally get a hold of Ancestry on. In the meantime, too, I'm trying to figure out how do I contact this person that's matched with me as a close match, and I can't really figure out how to use the site. So I finally get a hold of someone at Ancestry on the 26th of December. Tell them my deal, and I had a very nice person, but she flat out said, you're not biologically related to your father. I mean, that's why the results are that way. That's just the reality of it. She was pretty straightforward, and I'm like, wow, okay, I kind of thought that, but how do I get this more information? So she walked me through how I messaged the people that I was matched to, because they don't show live people. I could kind of go back in time, and the person that I could see was someone that was deceased in 1955. Well, I was born in 1967, so I'm thinking, okay, how does this all work? And so they told me that the person who I matched with is actually living, and they showed the next person, the first person who's deceased that's in that line. So I send messages. I probably look crazy to them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not matched with my dad. I don't know who you are. I'm assuming you don't know me. So I'm sending all these frantic messages to this person. I usually consider myself pretty mellow, but there's certain things that get me riled up, such as this. And
Yeah.
I'm getting nothing. I'm getting no response at all, and it's driving me crazy. So I'm the type of person. And my daughter even said this. She goes, "Oh my God, Mom, you're the worst person for this to happen to." I don't like surprises. I'm the kind of person that will read from the back of the book. Hey, is my character still alive in the book? I need to look. I do not like these unsolved mysteries. So I'm sitting here thinking, I have no idea I thought I knew everything about my life on my dad's side. All the people all counted for, even on my mom's side, to the extent we knew. I'm thinking, this is not good. Does not feel good. I feel super unsettled with it. So I'm getting nowhere, and I'm doing all kinds of, I'm searching this name on Google. I'm trying to get information. My brother is trying to help. He's an engineer, so he doesn't get emotional. And we're trying to logic this through. And one thing that might be of interest. So for a living, I'm a family law attorney mediator. So I'm used to dealing with people in this situation that are my clients, paternity issues. I'm just not accustomed to being for me. So I'm trying to approach, okay, if I were my client, what would I do? So I'm doing all of those things that I would do with my clients, and getting nowhere, basically. So fortunately, on January 1st, I get another hit on my ancestry, another close match, again, about 1,700 centimorgans. This is a female this time. The first person was a male, but they have a different last name. So I'm thinking, well, who is this person now? So I message her. She responds right away because she had been waiting for her results. And so we finally put two and two together that the other person that I was matched with is her brother. And based on their ages, they're close to my age. I'm older, but they're within my age group. Since I'm not matched with my dad who raised me, we sort of put together that probably we share a father. And so he was alive, and I asked if he would be willing to take a test so we can confirm. And they said they would ask him, and they wanted a bunch of information about me and as much information I could give about my mother and where I was born and all of that, because obviously this is news to them. And they talked to him, and he immediately wanted to talk to me. They had asked if it would be okay if he called. I said that would be fine, gave him my phone number, and he called. I had missed his call, and he left a voicemail message. And something that I actually wasn't prepared for was sort of the emotional impact that had on me. The second I started listening to the voicemail and I heard his voice, I just started to cry. And it's like I'm kind of upset now because the emotion was really overwhelming. I didn't expect that, actually. So I called him back, and we had a nice call. He does not remember my mother. He said that he was kind of a Don Juan type, and I'm sure that it was a one night stand type thing. And one thing I was had worried about, he had been married to his wife for 50 years. They're still married, and they have 6 children. And I was worried that he and his wife were together at the time that he had encountered my mother. So I was worried about that. Turns out, fortunately, that he had not met his wife until after after he had been with my mother. He didn't know anything about me. I believe him. So I don't have information. So the only person who really has information is my mother. So when this first came out, my brother and I were talking about it. And I said, oh gosh, I can't even talk to her about this because I cannot bear being lied to again. She will lie to me. I know she will lie to me. Her relationship with the truth is casual at best. She's not going to tell the truth on this. I know it. I don't think I could bear it. So my brother said he would talk to her, but then I'm like, well, no, I'm a grown-up person. I'll talk to her. But I didn't want to talk to her on the phone. I figured I'll take the easy way out and I'll send an email at least. So I emailed my mother, I copied my brother and my dad, and I say, hi, Mom, hope you're well. I took a DNA test on Ancestry, and turns out that Dad and I aren't biologically related. However, I seem to be related to this family. I give the name. And I said, I don't know what happened or why, and at this point it doesn't really matter. I'm sure you had your reasons for, keeping this information from me or whatever, but I would really appreciate any information that you have. And this is before I had hooked up with the biological family. I hadn't had any contact with them yet, so this is in the first couple of days. And of course, my mom doesn't respond. I have not talked to her, by the way, since at all. And this was in December of 2018. I've had no communication with her. But she did call my brother. And I even said that in the email. I said, you might not want to talk to me about that, but I would appreciate if you would talk to Kevin, my brother. And she did call my brother and immediately denies everything. Not true. Science is wrong. It's not true. I was a virgin when I married your dad. Well, since I got married in March, as I mentioned, I was born in September, and I was a 10-pound baby, nearly 23 inches long, 10 days overdue. Pretty unlikely she was a virgin when they got married. So that already didn't make sense. And my brother, like I said, is an engineer. He kind of, he's not a touchy-feely. I'm a touchy-feely. He's not a touchy-feely. And so he was the best person to talk to my mother because he was just lay it out and ask questions. And he didn't believe her story. And then she tried to change her story a few times. And he was like, that doesn't make sense, and just kind of call it out. And so my mother has changed her story multiple times to try to find one that people believe. Nobody believes the story because the stories that she's saying are just not believable. Even my brother, who is more inclined to believe our mom, knows it's not true. She's since has given that up and doesn't talk about it to my knowledge. And instead, what she's done, the worst thing about it actually is not my mother's denial. That's expected. My mother has always been that way. She is always a victim or the hero. She's never the villain, ever. And I know that about her. She's completely predictable on that. She behaves the same terrible way every time, pretty much. Never does the right thing, and I don't think she ever will. I hate to use never and always, but in my mother's situation, it does apply. So I kind of expected her to lie. And in fact, I was talking to my husband. I said, I wonder what my mom's going to do because she has to be the hero somehow or the victim. And what is she going to say? So, of course, she comes among the stories that she came up with. She must have been raped. Oh, she's so embarrassed to have a raped child and all this stuff. Just things that were just completely disrespectful to me. Also, I'm a person. I'm not a rape child, and even if she were raped, I would feel bad about that. But in her situation, I know that it's not true. But it's something that she used because she's then subsequently changed that story and has changed other ones. So what's as bad as all of that is, it's expected from her. But what she's tried to do, fortunately it hasn't worked, but she's tried to take away my support system. She's tried to turn my family, including my own children, my dad's family, his brothers, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my own brother, my sister-in-law, my nieces and nephews. She's tried to turn them against me and to make this my fault and to make herself, the hero somehow. And it's her attempt to try to destroy any sort of support system that I might have on this, right? That's the part that I think is unforgivable, and that's just how she is. She's that kind of person. And that's the hardest part for me, is to know that my own mother, with a serious issue like this, my paternity, even with this kind of situation, still is trying to make this my fault somehow. I'm a troublemaker. I'm a this, I'm a that, and a thousand other things. And that's the part that's actually is pretty difficult. And listening to other people, my mother's not unique in that. There's a lot of mothers that are just like that. Unfortunately for us, NPEs, when our mother should be the person who should be our biggest cheerleader, my mother is not. So that's how I found out.
I am so sorry, Allison. I stopped taking notes about 15 minutes ago, and I've just been sitting here dead still, nodding along. And you so beautifully explained that. And I'm sorry about everything you just said. And you really have a lot of awareness around the situation, and can explain it so well.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, thank you. So that, most of that story sounds negative. I get that. But actually, in reality, overall, I'm actually pretty happy that I have found this out. It explains a lot. And on the flip side, my biological family is very supportive. They are so welcoming. I have met my biological father and his wife in person, and one of my brothers and his wife, and two of their children. This is a huge Irish Catholic family. My father has 6 children, and they all have multiple children, and there are some other grandchildren other than mine. So and they all live close together in Washington. They live a couple states away because I still live in California. So that part's been really overwhelming, actually. The love and support that I've been getting from basically strangers, these people are still kind of strangers to me, has been overwhelming because I'm not accustomed to it, because I'm that way with, my husband and our kids, but, my husband comes from kind of both my husband and I are family oriented people, but we didn't come from family oriented families. So neither one of us are used to sort of this sort of outreach of people who are just accepting us as is. We can be ourselves. We're not judged, it seems so far. And that's been really good. Um, what I call the sweet hereafter, after finding all this out, is sort of where we're at now. So, sort of fast forwarding to today, the part that is, even though my brother was supportive at the beginning to sort of, let's try to get the facts of the matter. And finally, I finally said to him a week and a half into all of this, I said, Dad, do you not find it odd that we're not matched on Ancestry? Like, I finally just asked the question. He goes, well, yeah, I think it's a little odd. I said, well, I think it's a lot odd. So that's where I finally got him to kind of open up about some of the factual stuff, as it relates to him with my mother and their relationship and stuff like that. So, and that's how I was kind of able to put together some of the time frames. But my dad, I had asked him, my dad who raised me, I had asked him, I said, Dad, are you glad that we found this information out? Because I'm very glad. I would rather know the truth for sure. I don't care what the truth is. I want to know the truth. I'm a truth person. I grew up in a household with lies and deceit, and that's not how I am. And I don't think that serves, any purpose really. And my biological family my biological father definitely seems to be super excited to find out about me. He's like, feels so bad that he wasn't there for me. And, he wants, there's nothing that can be done about that. And I say, it's not your fault. There's nothing that we can do about that other than try to have a relationship going forward. We can't make up 52 years, but we can try to have another 52 if we're lucky. So he's excited. I'm excited about it. But my dad who raised me told me flat out, no, he wish he did know the truth. He could die happy that way. So that makes me feel bad because I'm excited to know about it. And I feel bad that he's not excited to know the truth. He, you know, so I can't really talk to him about this because it's painful for him. And my brother, who I was raised with, he does not want to talk about it. I invited him to come meet my biological family when they came at two different times. My brother came in August of 2019, and my dad came in September of 2019, so a few months ago. He refused. He doesn't want to talk about them. He says they're not his family. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He, just doesn't want to talk about it. And that makes me feel very sad because I told my brother if it were reversed, that I would be supportive of him and I would consider them my family because he's my family, right? But he just can't. He can't go there, I think, because his way, he's sort of like my dad, where painful information, it's better for him for his coping mechanism and is to ignore it. Then it's not real. And he is sort of the holdout in our family as far as giving our mom the benefit of the doubt. He's the only person really that hasn't really seen her for who she is. And I think it's too painful for him, quite frankly, to see that our mother is exactly the way that, we have always said. And I don't even blame her for, getting pregnant with me. And I have a lot of gratitude. She could have had other choices. I might not be here with some other choices she might have made. I would not be here without her for sure. But it doesn't excuse her abuse. My gratitude don't extend so far. And my brother just can't accept that, that she could have done this and did do it and has lied about it. And that's okay. I guess I've learned to kind of reconcile that. It's still painful. I'm not going to lie. I wish my brother and my dad were more supportive because I would like to share them with my family, my biological family on my paternal side now. I feel like today still, it's been about 18 months, I feel unattached from my family of origin because of this, yet not quite attached to my biological family because I don't really know them yet. And so I'm kind of in this void between these two families where I feel like I'm sort of free falling and not exactly attached to either. And I don't like that feeling. It feels unsettled to me. And even though it's positive, like I know that my paternal side is accepting and they've been nothing but accepting so far, it still feels weird. And it, I keep having to, I think about this every day, this situation every day. It doesn't consume all my days every minute, but I do think about this every day. And I sometimes have to remind myself, oh yeah, this is real. This isn't a dream. It's still, even 18 months later, it still seems really weird to me that this has happened. But it does explain a lot because after meeting my biological father, I see a lot of myself, good, bad, and ugly. I see where some of my passion and stuff like that comes from. That was totally non-existent in the family that I grew up in. I was really different from them in a lot of ways. The way I looked at the world, they are kind of in the box, black and white, very kind of angry people, kind of this dark stuff behind my brother, my dad, and my mom. Same. I'm not that way. I'm kind of out of the box. I'm more touchy feely, more like creative type thinker. I'm a problem solver for a living. I've always been a problem solver. I'm a connector. I like to settle things. I don't like unsettled business. They are like, the let's ignore it and it goes away. And so my paternal side is more like how I look at the world, which I found kind of refreshing. It's like, okay, I'm not such a weirdo. I fit in somewhere. So that was nice to know that. So and I was gonna go. We had a trip planned up to Washington where they live in March. We were going to go meet everybody, but then the pandemic happened, so we had to reschedule. So I'm looking forward to meeting them all sometime soon. I'm hoping that it will be August or September. It just kind of depends on what happens with the world now. But everybody was disappointed that we had to postpone, but obviously it made sense to do so. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, I sort of feel, in this sweet hereafter, that I'm not exactly, other than my own family, like my husband, my kids, I'm all super fine there. Everything's settled. Everything's great. I've got a lot of support and love there. But it's sort of the other people, the siblings and the parents and all of that feels a little the attachment isn't quite there in the way that I would like for my own personal comfort.
Yes. And especially with your family of origin, you explained so well that it's hard because here you've had all these so much happen to you in the last 18 months and you can't even really talk about it with your brother or your birth certificate father.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be a point of bonding and something that you could be sharing with each other and talking through, and instead it's like you really can't talk about it with them.
Yeah,
That's really hard.
exactly. And what's sad is my the new family, the paternal side, would totally accept them. They ask questions, they express, kind words, and they would love to embrace my brother and his family and my dad and even my mom. I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I don't know if you guys want to do that, but I'm glad that you would be accepting of her as well. And so for my family to not extend the same courtesy, it's hurtful, I think, because I would like everybody to get to know each other. We may not all like each other necessarily. That's how families are, but I would like us to be able to, all meet, and I would like to, at a minimum, be able to talk about these new people who I find amazing so far with my dad and my brother, because my dad and my brother are my family. They've been my family, for 52 years, and that's not going to change. But I feel a lot of things as MPs, as as MPs feel all kinds of things at all different times. And I was silenced as a kid. As I mentioned, my mom did not allow us to have opinions or point of views. So I felt really silenced. I felt my mom threw a lot of mud on my wings and, silenced me for sure. And it took me a lot of years to find my voice, basically, a lot of years. Like, even now, even though I talk a lot, as you can tell, it's taken me a lot of years to, try to shake that low self-esteem that was created in my household. So this feels kind of like the same. It feels like my dad and my brother, I'm 52 years old now, are trying to silence me. And I don't like it because I have a voice and I have importance in the world. And I don't want people who are important to me to, you know, silence me. However, with that said, I also know that sometimes in a relationship, there are people who we have to change our expectations. There's I don't know if you've ever heard of Reverend Jakes. He's given speeches. He's been on Oprah. He's been on TED Talks and stuff. And he said that when we're dealing with relationships, particularly dysfunctional ones, um, we sometimes have to change our expectations. And he did this great analogy, I thought. He said, some people are givers, some people are takers, some people are pint people, and some people are gallon people. And you can't expect a pint person to give you a gallon. And if you can kind of keep that in perspective, it helps. And so my brother, I know he loves me and I love him, but his limitations, are what they are. And he will not be able to meet me halfway on this. So I'm going to have to meet him, which means that I'm just going to have a relationship with him that doesn't have this included until he's able to accept that. And I'm hoping one day he will be able to accept it. But if I force it on him, and I've tried to talk to him about it before, he just shuts down. And then my brother and I end up getting in a fight about it because I get my feelings hurt and he gets hurt and all that. So I've decided that I'd rather have a relationship with my brother, even if it doesn't touch on this subject, than to not have one at all. And the same with my dad. I figured, well, as much as I don't like the situation, I care enough about them that I'll have the relationship that I have with them, because otherwise it's healthy. They don't criticize me, unlike my mother, which is an unhealthy relationship. It's just a relationship that I have with them that just won't include certain subjects, as big as subjects as they are. They just can't include that. So.
And what a great analogy. What was the name of that speaker you just said?
Reverend T.D. Jakes, Jakes. If you Google him, he's great. He has a lot of really great ways of looking at difficult situations.
Thank you. Okay, and I have more questions for you. I'm going to take those offline because I want to be respectful of your time today. But if other people have questions for you and want to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
They can email me if they want. My email is sunnyally@icloud.com, and that's sunnyalli@icloud.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Allison for sharing today. These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE that would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.